This is Geometry, section 6.1, Angle Measures in Polygons. So we've seen the word polygon before. Polygon is just a fancy word for a shape. So we've talked before about how a triangle, the angles in a triangle, talking about angle measures today, the angles in a triangle we know add up to 180 degrees. And we've run into problems before where we've got a four-sided shape or a five-sided shape, and we say to ourselves, well, how do I know how many degrees all of these different angles add up to? Maybe they're all 90 like a square and that adds up to 360, but does that always happen? How do I know? So that's what we're learning today. So in these diagrams, it says draw all diagonals from vertex A and fill out the table. So diagonals means a line from one corner, so it says from A. So draw all the diagonals in that you can from A without drawing a line exactly from one corner to the other, making a side of the shape. So there would only be one diagonal in this shape right here, which has four sides. We can fill that out. This has four sides, 1, 2, 3, 4. This has 5 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This has 6 sides. So we can only draw in one diagonal here, because if we go to this corner, like I said, we're just drawing over a line of the shape. If we go to this corner, we're just drawing over a line. Here, if I start at A, I can go to this corner, and I can go to this corner. Here, if I start at A, I can go to this corner, or this corner. So here, this is a four-sided shape, we said. So the technical name for a four-sided shape is a quadrilateral. Five-sided shape is called a pentagon. You've probably heard that word before. And a six-sided shape is called a hexagon. This, an n-gon, that's not really a real word, it's just a made-up word. So this just means a shape with n sides. Okay, so n sides. And we're just going to use this to write a formula for a general way to figure out how many degrees are in a certain shape with a certain number of sides. So by doing this, I cut this four-sided shape into two separate triangles. Two. I cut the five-sided shape into three triangles and the six-sided shape into four triangles. So there's a pattern here. So four-sided shape turns into two triangles. 5 turns into 3. 6 turns into 4. Every time I add a side, it adds a triangle, but the number of triangles is 2 less than the number of sides. So for n sides, we would just say the number of triangles is going to be n minus 2. So what's the sum of the interior vertex angles for all of these shapes? Well, since I cut this into two triangles, this would be 180 degrees, like we know, and this would be 180 degrees. So 180 plus 180 gives me 360 degrees. Just like a square, we know has four 90-degree angles. 4 times 90 gives us 360. For a five-sided shape, I cut it into three triangles. So each triangle is 180. 180 plus 180 plus 180 adds up to 540 degrees. If I do that again for four triangles, 4 times 180 gives me 720. So whatever this number is, n minus 2, I'm going to take that and multiply it by 180 degrees to figure out the sum of the interior angles. So what does it mean for a polygon to be regular? We're going to run into that word a lot in this chapter. So regular means all sides congruent and all angles are congruent. So it says find the value of the variable. What is the sum of all of the angles in this shape? Well, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So we just wrote down up here that a five-sided shape adds up to 540 degrees. So just like with a triangle where we had two angles, we had to find the third, we added up the two angles and we subtracted from 180. So now we're going to add up all of these numbers and subtract it from 540. So if we add 85, 100, 140, and 120, we get 445. And if we subtract that from 540, we get 95 degrees for A right here. Same thing for the next one. We got to count the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A six-sided shape. So we take the number of sides, subtract 2 from it, which is 4, and then we multiply that number by 180. We already got this one up above again. That one was 720. So I take 720 and subtract all of these. Whoops, gotta count this one in the corner here. So even though a number isn't here, we know that this is 90 degrees. So I add up this, this, and this. All of these added together gives me 600. So I take that away from my total, which I know is 720. So 720 minus 600 gives me 120 degrees for this angle B right here. All right, so these last two examples, it tells us are regular shapes. So again, regular means all sides and all angles are the same. So if all the angles are the same, I have to figure out what the total is and then divide it by however many angles there are. So here, this shape has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sides. So if it has 12 sides, it's going to have 12 minus 2, or 10 triangles that I can make from it. So I'm going to take that number, multiply it by 180 degrees. So the sum of all of the angles in this shape is going to be 1800. So 1800 degrees, all of these angles added together. So to figure out what one of those angles is, since there's 12 of them and it's regular, meaning they're all equal, I just take that total and divide it by 12. So 1800 divided by 12 gives me 150. Same thing for this shape right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sides. 9 sides. So I take that number of sides, subtract 2, and multiply that number by 180. So 7 is 9 minus 2. 7 times 180 is 1260. So now I have 9 angles this time. I know they're all the same because it says it's regular. So I take my total and divide it by 9 because there's 9 angles. So to find one of them, I divide by the number that there are. And that gives me 140 degrees. So a general rule. In a convex polygon, don't worry too much about that word. We're only going to use convex polygons. So in a polygon with n sides, the sum of the interior vertex angles is, like we've been doing, we take the number of sides and we subtract 2. So n minus 2 times 180, because that's how many triangles can be created inside that shape. And we know 180 degrees are in a triangle. So we take the number of sides in the shape, subtract 2 from it, and multiply by 180. If the convex polygon, or n-gon, this just means n sides. So if it's also regular, meaning all sides and all angles are the same, then each interior vertex angle, so if you're only trying to find one angle, is going to be whatever this total is, so n minus 2 times 180, divided by however many angles there are, so n. So if you're only trying to find one angle, you find the total first by doing n minus 2 times 180, and then you just divide it by however many sides there are, because that's also how many angles there are. All right, so if you add up all of the exterior angles, we've talked about exterior angles with triangles. If you add up all the exterior angles of a convex polygon, you always get 360 degrees no matter how many sides the shape has. It's always 360 for exterior angles. So remember, an exterior angle looks like this. So if this is my shape, this triangle, an exterior angle is outside the shape. So if the convex polygon is also regular, meaning all sides and all angles are the same, then each interior angle is congruent. So I would figure out how much each one is by taking 360 divided by the number of sides in that shape. So find the value of the variables. These are all exterior angles right here. So I know that they all have to add up to 360. So add them all up and set it equal to 360. 15a plus 135 equals 360. Subtract 135, get 225, whoops, 225. And then finally divide by 15 to get 15 for A. Solving for the variable. All right, same thing here, except now these two are exterior, these two are interior. So to find the exterior angle, we know that these have to add up to 180. So if this is 120, that has to be 60. If this is 90, this also has to be 90. So just add them all up again. 60 plus 90 plus 110 plus 4b all adds up to 360. All of this added together is 260. So if I subtract 260 from 360, I get 100. So 4b is 100, and dividing by 4 gets me 25 for b. Same thing here. These exterior angles are still 90 since the interior angles are 90. So add all of these exterior angles up. 5c, 65, 60, 90, 90. All of that is going to equal 360. So all of that added together is 305. And then if I subtract that, there's 55 left over. When I divide by 5, I get 11. All right, this shape is a regular 10-gon. That's really called a decagon, but this just means it has 10 sides. So if this is regular and all of the exterior angles add up to 360, if I'm only finding one exterior angle, I just divide by 10. So D has to be 36. Here, this is a regular shape. So if I want to find each interior angle, there's 5 sides. So we know from the front page that there are 540 degrees total in a 5-sided shape. So to find one angle, I just divide that by 5. And that gives me 108 degrees right here. This is an isosceles triangle, since these are all congruent, since this is a regular shape. So to figure out what these two are, take the 108 away from 180, 72 is left over, and that has to be divided up evenly between these two angles, since I know in an isosceles triangle, the angles across from the sides are congruent. So these are each 36. So if this is 36, and this whole thing is an angle inside this shape, this whole thing is 108, to find E, I take 108 minus 36 and get 72. The measure of each exterior angle of a regular polygon is 15 degrees. Find the number of sides. Well, exterior angles, if it's a regular polygon, to find one exterior angle, I just divide by the number of sides. So if I do that, and I get 15 degrees for the exterior angle, that means I took 360 divided by however many sides there were. So if I just want to solve this, I can either plug numbers in and guess and figure out what number 360 divided by gives me 15, or I can turn this into a proportion, set it up, and cross multiply. So 360 times 1, 15 times n, divide by 15, and you would get 24 for the number of sides. All right, the measure of each interior vertex angle of a regular polygon is 162. Formula that we had for this, measure of the interior of each interior angle for a regular polygon, was this. Take the number of sides minus 2 times 180 and then divide by the number of sides. So this problem says when we do that, we get 162 degrees. So now how do we solve for n? Again, you could just plug in numbers and try to figure out what value for n is going to give you 162, or you could solve it algebraically, get rid of the fraction by multiplying by n, and distribute the 180. So 180n minus 360 gives you 162n. Combine the n's onto one side. Negative 360 equals negative 18n, and dividing by negative 18 gets me 20 sides. All right, the perimeter of a regular polygon is 108 inches, and each interior vertex angle is 165. Find the side length. So this means we have to figure out the number of sides. So if we do the same thing we did up here, we would find that, so we would do this entire equation, except 162 would turn into 165. So if we do that, we would get that there are 24 sides in this shape. Since it says the perimeter is 108, if I divide that 108 total by 24, that gives me the length of one side, which is going to be 4.5 inches.